Welcome back to A Bit of Curiosity. Let's dive into just a lot of stuff today. I'm excited. We've got Kip Sorensen on here. I've known Kip for 15 years probably. We lived in the same neighborhood together, and then we each moved out of that neighborhood and have just stayed connected virtually, but it's great to have you on, Kip. Just to give Kip a little bio, I wrote this one so he can correct anything that may be false here, but Kip's a leadership and career coach. He focuses on people and how to get the most out of them. He's also a husband, father, and contributor of the Order of Man podcast. He's really made just the appropriate manliness, and that as taboo as that word seems these days, we'll talk about that a little bit. But
Okay.
he works through that, right, and works to get the most out of men as leaders through just the proper form of love and compassion and support and leadership. So let's go ahead and dive into it, Kip. So as we lead with that bio, right? And if you want to add anything amidst my first question here, feel free.
Yeah, it's good enough. Yeah.
But as we look at manliness or masculinity, right? Like it's kind of become this taboo term over the last decade or so. But talk to us a little bit about what is healthy masculinity.
Well, and I actually, this term. Maybe I won't come with its original source, but the Order of Man podcast, we have a logo, and in that logo, there's three words that start with P, or the three P's, as some people might know them as, and it's to protect, provide, and preside. And I think that is a healthy version of masculinity. The hang up that most people will get is on that preside. Right? We're like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Women and men will all agree. Men should protect. And provide, yeah, sure. No, they don't have to. I mean, I'm fully capable, but they can provide if they'd like to. But this preside, this concept of presiding over, I think is actually rooted, or the negative insights that we have about it, or the negative relationship a lot of people have with preside is the same negative relationship that people have with leadership. That it's this people in this position of authority that exercise their authority to command and control others and dictate what they do. And that's the furthest from the truth. Leadership, good leadership does not look like that. And good masculinity and good versions of presiding don't look that way either. But in my opinion, it's to protect, provide, and preside. And to preside is to overlook and to serve. I think men are built in service. I think this is where we can use examples of guys coming back from the military and they lose their mission because they're not providing value. This is where guys get highly depressed in the event that they get laid off or they lose their jobs, because we find purpose and meaning in service. And the common form of service that most men provide those they love is in the space of providing.
Yeah, it's interesting, like how vernacular changes, right? And how we can perceive the way that words mean, what the words mean, right? Like and how they translate, right? Like because as we look at presiding, right? Like if we take a biblical context, right? And that even gets turned on its head a little bit. But Adam was to preside, right? Like but it's this governance of service, sacrifice, love, lifting up the spouse, the family, right? Like putting those things above his own desires and needs and putting them first and foremost. And whereas nowadays we take this word preside and we look at it as kind of this dictatorial, just commander, right? Like almost like dictatorship type, right? Like we kind of view it as maybe a communistic dictator, right? In that term,
Totally.
right? And that really jades roles, right? Like responsibilities. It affects men directly and how they feel about themselves and what their actual responsibilities are within a family. It also affects how their children perceive them and how we all perceive the other things that go on in the world, right? Like it might change how we perceive a boss. And some of those things, as you talk about in a lot of your posts and content, right? Like some of this is self-driven by what the boss does in
Yeah,
demeaning,
totally.
etc., right? But some of it's also in how we perceive it as a society. And we need to kind of get realigned with some of those things.
Totally. And this is a little bit of a soapbox, but society's really good at being lazy in their thinking, right? It's human nature, right? Jeremy, I asked what political party you voted for, and all of a sudden, guess what that comes with? A bunch of judgment, right? Oh, got you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'll put you in the box. I understand how you think, and I'll demonize you. Why? Because I don't want to critically think. Right. And so the same thing happens in multiple areas. We do this. These are where stereotypes come from. They're lazy forms of thinking. And enough men show up in the world and do a poor job being good men. And all of a sudden we create a new box called toxic masculinity. And it's our way to explain it versus me seeking to understand and identify root cause and the complexity of what it means to be a human, let alone the complexity of what it means to be a man. It's much easier to put a label on you and just say, oh, well, you're this. But I like to fight against that in all aspects of life, whether it's politics or our definitions of words and language. I mean, the thing that we need to do more of is critically think and identify root cause and seek to understand things and get past this lazy form of thinking that is so rampant in society.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it stems from the idea of black and white, right? Like we like polarization for whatever reason, right? Like I don't know
It's
that
crazy.
we necessarily like it, but it's what feeds and fuels us, right? Like and if we really get down to it and we really like sit and have a deep, thoughtful and intentional conversation with somebody else, we tend to not be very polarized, right? Like we actually start to see that, oh, there's nuances, right? Like there's little things here or there, right? Like, and the pools are actually bigger than what we perceive them, right? But the media and whatever, right? Like we like to just take and say, okay, it's good and it's evil, right? Like, and so you're either here or you're either here, or you're Republican or you're Democrat. You can't be anything else. And you're either all the way over here or you're all the way over here, or you're religious or you're non-religious, or like we just, it's stereotypes, right? Like we bucket people, but it's very black and white, and we don't
Totally.
believe in just gradation of color.
Totally.
And
most people are on such a evaluate human behavior and your drive to look good and to avoid looking bad. It's how I communicate. It's the car I drive. It's the clothes I chose to wear. It's the way I talk. It's so driven and so innate that we're so obsessed with trying to look good in all that we do that looking good is a form of what? Justifying that I'm right. And if I'm right and I'm self-absorbed with validating my own opinion of being right, then what does that make you, Jeremy? Wrong.
yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
also a matter of safety too.
It's totally.
It's also,
So I
and it's
understand
also a
you.
root of fear. It's
Yeah,
also a root of fear, right? Like, because we are afraid to be wrong. We are afraid to not look right. We are afraid to not look good. And so we'll pomp and circumstance, we'll puff ourselves up, right? Like, in whatever way, we'll cover ourselves with the things of the world or whatever so that we don't look, so that we're not vulnerable, right? So that we don't have to lean into things that might make us, like, might make our true selves come out, right? Like, and because it's sometimes it's scary, right? Like it's scary to open up, it's scary to be vulnerable, it's scary to be wrong, right? Like you go back to the 3 Ps, right? Like the idea of presiding in my home might be a little scary, because what if my wife or my child says, "No, that's not the way we want to do it." Then okay, well I took that proverbial step into the dark and I said, let's do this, and everybody shot me down, and so now I'm wrong, and I don't want to do that again.
totally. Totally. And it's ironic because often most growth and progress at the individual levels on the backside of addressing that fear and stepping into the difficulty. So we know that's a fundamental principle, right? That growth is through the challenge, whether it's going to the gym and putting in the reps or hitting the path and running the miles or addressing difficult circumstances. That is where growth is. But yet our innate natural tendency is to avoid it to play it safe and to hide, right? For the sake of safety, which is we're so crazy humans.
Absolutely. It's kind of like I love to run in the mountains. Whether it's hiking or running, I love to be in the mountains. And one of the things that I always notice is that big mammals, elk, deer, moose, they love to take the path of least resistance. They will almost always use the man-made trail over carving their own path because it's easier. We've made it easier for them. We as humans are the same way. We're lazy creatures.
Yeah,
We like to be comfortable, and we like to take the path of least resistance because we don't like the hard work. But the problem is, like, I'm reading a book right now titled Margin. I don't know if you've ever read it. I'm really liking it, but he talks a lot about, so he uses the word margin. Brendan Burchard uses the white space of time to kind of define this, right? But in our lives, we fill our time with so much, and I think that's, and Tim Ferriss talked about this. He says busyness is a form of laziness, and because if you look at what we're so busy doing, most of, like, you work as the chief people officer, whatever your title is, right, for a Journey team. And so you work with a lot of employees. You work with employee morale and all of these things, right? But if you look at, okay, how productive are your employees actually? And I'm not going
yeah,
to make you call anybody out here on this podcast, right? But traditionally, we see people get into the office, and the first thing they do is they boot up their computer and they jump into their email. And now that they're in their email, they might come up at noon for lunch, and then they'll come back and they might have 30 minutes of actually getting stuff that really matters done. And then they'll get distracted by a ping or an alert or whatever. And then they're in email, they're in Facebook, they're in YouTube, right? Like, whatever, right? Like, we're busy, right? But how much did we actually accomplish? How much did we actually get done during that day?
totally.
And because we are so busy, but we're not actually doing what really matters. We're not putting in the reps. We're not putting in the hard work. We're not putting in the resistance training. We're not putting in the miles, right? Like, to use a physical metaphor, right? And oftentimes that's the case literally as well, right? For our physical health, because we're so lost in, well, this is easier, right? Like, it's easier for me to just count my 7,000 steps from walking around all day between meetings and up the stairs and whatever, as that's my workout, right? I can count all the emails that I replied to as my work for the day. But did you actually progress your company or reach your
Totally. Well,
objectives?
and I always like to say, why is it easy? And what it is it's chasing dopamine hits, right? The work that drives results requires a longer delayed gratification for it to be achieved. Watch, like, anyone listening, it's like, you know this to be true, right? How many times have you like, oh my, I need to do X. Like, X is really important. That's really important. And then you go, but I'll just hurry up and do some emails really quick. Why? Why did you do that? You know the other thing's more important. Why? Oh, because doing some emails makes me feel busy. AKA, I get a little bit of dopamine hit. I'm achieving some stuff. I got some stuff done, right? And then we wear it as a badge around how busy we are, but we don't get any results. And what I love about this, Jeremy, is like, this is no different in companies. We might even perpetuate this way of thinking when you manage performance tied to behaviors and actions and not results, right? So if you want to ultimately drive performance, what you do is you don't say, hey, employee, you need to check these boxes and do these XYZs. No. You say, here's the results. How you get there, that's up to you. And now they're self-directed in the results, and we ensure that we're driving towards results, not just, well, I did the things that you asked me to do and they didn't work. And so, I'm going to throw my hands up and that's on you, not me.
Yeah, and I think COVID was a really interesting test at this. And, like, there's a lot of different, right? Like, we can cite lots of different studies on this and whatever, right? But there were a number of companies that reported actual increased productivity when they started having people work from home. Because now people could work around, like, now they were focused, right? Like, it was like, okay, I got to work around my schedule. I got to work around my kids and their homeschool and all it. Like, And so the time that I have to work, I got to get crap done, right? Like I got to be like I've got to
Results.
reach my objectives and get results, right? And they could do it kind of on their own time frame. They had freedom to do it and they were able, and that's why I believe that we saw some productivity rises. And it dipped and whatever, right? Like there's a lot of different things resulting from it, right? But as we look at that and we say, okay, if I'm sitting in the if I'm just a butt in a seat and that's my qualification of doing a good job, right?
Just show up and sit there.
Just
Yeah.
right, like how it's like Office Space, right? Like he sits in the interview, right? And they're like, okay, like tell us
Bob's.
about what you do every day, right? He's like, well, I get in and I just stare at my computer for an hour mindlessly. Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, what are you doing? And he's like, I have zero incentive to sell more widgets because I don't get incentivized. I get paid the same, right? Like, and then he goes, and then like, all I basically got to do, I got 6 bosses, right? Like, I got 6 people that if I screw something up, I'm going to get yelled at by 6 different people. So all I got to do is the bare minimum not to get yelled at and not to lose my job.
Yeah.
And how
Don't
many,
innovate. Don't
right? Like,
challenge the status quo. Don't do anything. Just do what's asked of you. Keep your head down and don't get in trouble. Yeah.
so how do we as leaders instill a culture where people can challenge the status quo, where they can push the envelope, but they can also know that, you know what? The boss isn't going to get offended or feel like he's threatened by me, and I'll be able to innovate and keep my job. And maybe, hopefully, even partake in the profits of the company and get a raise and bonuses, right? Like, how do we do that as leaders?
Yeah. I mean, I feel it's going to sound cheesy, but it's the right answer, But I mean, in people have to know, genuinely know that you care for them. They have to know. Dale Carnegie quoted, no one cares about what you have to say until they know how much you care. And in the grand scheme of things, if our people do not know that we genuinely are looking for the best interest of them, that we want to see them win, then why do we coach them then if that's not the case? Yeah, he's just trying to control me. He's trying to manipulate me, trying to suck all the energy out of me and get the most out of me so he can make a buck, right? Like we start questioning all the intent when it's not rooted in proper things, such as caring for those you lead. So we have to care for those you lead. Otherwise, every employee will ever question, why is it that Jeremy is asking me to do this? So Jeremy looks good. Right. And it has to be true, of course, but you have to love those you lead. And that's the first step in the process. I think the second one is you got to drive an organization where learning is promoted, where it's okay to mess up. It's okay as long as we learn from it. It's okay to raise your hand and say, I don't know this, and not feel like you have to hide because if you get found out, you're going to lose your job. Like you can't operate from a space of uncertainty or fear. And it has to be believed that people, you want what's best for them. And we embrace challenges as opportunities for learning and growth. And then the third thing that I think is like really super dear to me, that I feel is really disruptive, but it's a core principle to leadership, is we honor agency. In any scenario by which I am a leader and I am trying to manipulate people to do something, that's my red flag. That means what? My almighty arrogance. I know what's best for them and I'm going to treat them like a child and control them. Right. I did a leadership retreat and I don't mean to like call this person out if they listen to this, but like I did a leadership retreat and over that weekend, I heard a couple key phrases that are like triggers for me. And they were, well, I gave them too much margin. I allowed these dictator kind of language, right? I allowed it to occur. You allowed it? You controlled another person, whether you're a slave? Are you joking? And people feel that. You know that, and I know that. You start playing with taking control of me and dictating what I do. Sure, maybe out of fear, I'll listen to you, but you're not getting my heart. You'll get compliance maybe from me, not to get fired. But the minute we start playing with people's agency and freedom, that's a problem. And so, well, geez, Kip, how do you do that? Well, this is how you do it. You get super clear on what is winning. So, Jeremy, if you're a brand new employee and you came in and I said, Jeremy, black and white, this is what winning looks like in your role. Are you willing to make the necessary adjustments and do the necessary things to win in this role? Yes or no? And if you say yes, awesome. And now when I hold you accountable, I'm not holding you accountable to what I want. I'm holding you accountable to what? Your commitment, not mine. And that's it. And then some people may go, I don't want to. Okay, that's awesome. This isn't the right seat for you. But there's no scenario by which I try to convince you to do something that you don't want to do. Because how does that type of person show up at work? When they're doing it out of compliance. Man, those people, they almost want it to fail, right? So they can say, I knew it. I never thought this was a good idea to begin with, right? So the first sign of failure, they'll celebrate it, right? But if you give them the agency and some freedom to operate and go, you figure it out. Dude, that's a whole other different way of showing up in an environment than just being dictated by the puppeteer that's a leader.
No, I like that. And you talk about defining winning, right? And I think sometimes in business, it gets really convoluted as to what winning is, right? I don't, to cite a book titled Winning, which I hate. I am not a Jack Welch fan by any means. I am anti Jack Welch. Um, but I think it's very important, right? Like, let's take Kobe Bryant, for example, right? Kobe Bryant he could be incentivized by dollars, whatever, right? Like, but at the end of the day, Kobe was incentivized by winning. He knew, okay, I have to win 55 plus games a year, right? Because that's got to put us in the top 3 seeds in the playoffs. And if we're in the top 3 seeds in the playoffs, we're going to have a better route through the playoffs, and we're going to have a more likelihood to get to reach the championship, right? To reach the NBA finals. Once we get to the finals, we got to win 4 out of 7. And so, you know what? I'm going to show up every day at freaking 4 a.m. and I'm going to work harder than anybody, because the harder I work, the more, like, it's like Steph Curry, right? Like, Steph Curry puts up what, 1,000 shots a day or whatever, 500 shots a day it is, right? Like, because he knows what the goalpost is, right? Like, he knows what he needs to reach. The problem in business is the only metric that we often give to the employees is maybe a revenue goal, and we don't fully have control of that revenue goal. Like, the market can kind of dictate what that is. Like, okay, like, if that's my only goal, then, or if it's a profitability goal or what, right? Like, if it's tied to the P&L, which I think, okay, right? Like, there have to be some metrics tied to the P&L, but what are the subsequent metrics that get us there? Because I only have so much control. Like, Kobe only has so much control going into a game, right? Like, Kobe can score 81 points against the Toronto Raptors and will his team to win, but he can't do that every single night. And he's got to have other players on his team step up, right? Like, or they're not going to win the championship. So he can't do it alone. We can't do it alone in business, and we have to know what the goalposts are. I've been in way too many corporate environments where our goal is, okay, you need to run as lean of a budget as you can, and you need to drive as high of a revenue as you can, and that's what you do. Okay, great, that's fun, like, but what's, like, okay, great. And then I got to kind of make it up myself, and then if whatever the market changes or things shift and we don't hit those numbers, and maybe we're staying under budget, but because maybe Facebook ads have increased in CPMs and now I got to spend more to make more and I can't stay in the same ratio. I'm not hitting the revenue goal because my budget's set where it's at. Okay, what else am I measured off of? No, you're just measured off of revenue, and actually you didn't hit the revenue number, so we got to let
Fully.
you go.
Well, and not only that, like I totally agree with all of that. And then I would even add this dilemma that often when we give responsibility to someone and hold them accountable, it doesn't have equal level of authority to it. So you're like, okay, got it. And that's what that revenue number is. Hey, Jeremy, I'm going to hold you responsible to hitting a revenue number. Oh, got it. So I have full control to.
No, no. Yeah.
And if it's too vague and too large, then you will get people that are checked out. You absolutely will. They will not be inspired and motivated by a number that they believe that they cannot change. So then the question is okay, well, what's the number that they can change? What's the thing that is within their realm of control? Right. But, I almost feel like there's like, and I'm being judgmental here, but I almost feel like there's an element of control that leaders like keeping it vague. That way I can tell you, Jeremy, just to keep working harder. I can pivot what winning looks like on you anytime I want. I'm not held accountable from you of what I said the reward will be for you winning if I don't define winning. Like it's almost like a sick little thing that some leaders do. So then that way they're not held responsible to the promises of that commitment.
Right. And if they can't justify your salary anymore because maybe revenues have dipped, and it's easy to get rid of you because everything's
Yeah.
vague, right? Like it's
Yeah. And then we could just say,
and
well, you weren't winning. Yeah.
yeah, and no, there is a scary amount of vagueness, right? Like, and then there's the other thing, right? Like the problem with business today, especially publicly traded companies, and I love Simon Sinek, right? Like leaders eat last, or the infinite game is another great example, right? Like is that we tend to take things by quarters, right? Like it's like, okay, well, we didn't hit our quarterly goals now, so we need to slash 20% of our workforce. And this is why I hate Welchian economics, because that's what Jack Welch essentially did is like, okay, well, we're going to slash 20% of our. Well, you know what that does? Is that puts everybody into a state of fear because they're afraid that they could be on the chopping block next.
So
So then
loyalty
now,
and trust are out the window.
exactly,
Yep.
innovation is completely gone because not only did you lose the 20% that could come up with the great ideas to help move the ship, but you also have everybody else that's gun shy to be willing to give those ideas, right? And then everything is strictly tied to an earnings per share or whatever other metric that is, right? And so regardless of what the market does, everybody is trying to basically bleed a turnip as well as they can so that they can save their jobs in some way, right? And so they're tasked to do the seemingly impossible, and yet if you don't hit the goals, they're on the chopping block next, right? And so that just destroys company morale, it destroys innovation, it destroys just there is no goalpost at the end of the day, right? I'm a to go back to the basketball analogy, right? Like I bring in Kobe Bryant because I love Kobe's work ethic. And I hated watching him win, right? Like just because I hate watching the Lakers win. But that comes from a kid born and raised in Utah, right?
Yeah. Jazz.
But and I'm a huge Jazz fan. And right now I actually cheer for every team that plays against the Jazz because I want to stay in the bottom three. I want to win that Cooper Flag sweepstakes. However, I feel like, and I think Coach Hardy does a phenomenal job at this, is that winning is not the goal, right? Danny Ainge has very specifically said we don't want to win right now, right? Like and whether he's verbally said it or he said it through actions of who he leaves on the bench, whatever, right? Like who he claims is injured. But there are certain metrics, right? Like what are your assists per game? What are your turnovers per game? What are the things that you're doing to improve on a day in and day out basis, right? There are moments when your business is going to flatline or maybe even decline a little bit, right? And if your people understand that, okay, there are other metrics that I should be following, there are other objectives, OKRs, what KPIs, whatever we want to use, right? There are specific things that I need to be driving to, right? What are things that I can become more efficient at? And how can I improve? And what's the freedom that I have within my role to improve in those things? And if your people understand that, then they're going to step up. They're going to innovate. They're going to come up with ideas, right? Like if I know that, okay, I have to figure out how to get the cost of this widget from $35 down to $32 so that we can improve our overall margin. But I have to keep it the same quality. I have to keep it, or in better quality, I have to keep it, right? Performance, all of those things, right? Like, I'm going to start looking outside the box and trying to fit. And if you give me full autonomy on that, I'm going to figure
Yeah.
it out, right? Like, and I might get it down to $29 because I found something. I found a different supplier. I was able to travel to Asia and go and meet with all of these suppliers. And this material manufacturer actually is making a better material that I can get at 50% of the cost. And it's going to be more durable. It's going to be water resistant with all of these other, whatever, right? Am I going to get that if I don't have the full autonomy? Like, if the boss is like, no, we can't afford for you to go take a $2,500 trip to Asia to go check this out. But that $2,500 trip to Asia, going to 3 or 4 different countries over there, whatever, to go to these different suppliers, that could net a savings. If I can get it from 35 down to 31, it's a $4 per widget, right? I can keep my sales volume the same, keep my like my wholesale price the same, right? Like, you sell 100,000 of those units, that's 400 grand. You sell 1 million of those units, that's $4 million, right? Like, so that $2,500 trip, is that worth saving 40 grand, right? Like, even if you save $1 and sell 40,000 more, right? Like, yeah, absolutely,
Totally.
right? Like, but do we have the courage or the trust or the love that we're willing to do that as leaders and say, okay, you know what? Yeah, you have full autonomy over this. It's
Totally.
humility at the end of the day, right? Like, it's meekness.
Yeah.
It's not this pride and it's got to be
Well,
me.
and I've always used this analogy for, if we looked at, a leader that's over like a project team, right? As long as the project's the objective, then the leader will compromise the strategic growth of the team for the success of the short-term win. And that's one of the things that I constantly try to like get, that it's not about the project anymore. It's actually about the support of the individual. And people might go, geez, Kip, you can't do that because like then we won't have successful projects. Well, you're assuming that the person doesn't want to win. And that's the very issue, right? Like, I have this quote that I love that I use often, and it's, people want to have significant impact. They want to be utilized by contributing in meaningful ways and being challenged in the work that they're doing. I choose to believe that's a fundamental truth. So that stops me from doing what? Micromanaging the crap out of everybody, telling them exactly what they want to do, knowing that actually Jeremy does want to reduce the cost of the widget. He really does. So am I getting in his way, or am I supporting him in doing that? But if we think and we just assume, well, you're just a lazy butt and you want to take advantage of the company and blah, 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 then yeah, you're a ticket taker and I'll command and control you. And the problem with that is not scalable, right? Eventually I can't manage that many people and tell them all what to do all the time. And it won't work.
I think I'm thinking about my children as you talk, right? Like, I think inherently we all have a desire to win. I'm looking on my bookshelf right in front of me. There's a book on golf. There's some, like, I got a John Wooden book, right? But you go out on the golf course, and you can go on any golf course at any time. And who's not frustrated when they slice their shot off the fairway, right? Like, you go swing it off the tee and it goes off to the left, and you're just like, everybody's frustrated, right? Like, I don't care who you are. Like, my wife is super competitive, and I just for whatever, right? Like, and we were down in Costa Rica this past year, and the resort that we were staying at had let us use the driving range for free. We go unlimited buckets of balls, whatever, right? So we go out there and we start swinging, and she's like, I hate this. Why do you like this game? She's like, I'm like, hun, you just don't know how to hit it. Like, let's, and she's like, no, this is dumb. And she's so competitive that she's not winning, right? Like, and so it's frustrating her. She's like, if I could hit it, and then she'll have a good shot, and she's like, oh, that felt so good. If I could hit it every time like that, I think I could like this game. And it's like, well, it's practice, right? Like, she's like, no, it's too hard. It's too hard. But I think, but like you look at your kids, right? Like if they come home and they try out for the school play and they don't get the part that they wanted, or they try out for the basketball team and they didn't make it, or they sit the bench on their rec league team and they're just not in final minutes to try and win the game, right? Like we all want to win. And the problem that we have as leaders a lot of the time is we don't believe that our people want to win, like you said, right? Like we want, and maybe we're just so self-absorbed and not self-aware that we want all the credit, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so we just want to hold on to that. You look at some of the greatest coaches, right? Like the reason why they're great coaches, yeah, okay, they organized and they pushed players to certain brinks, right? But they had great players, and like Steve Kerr, he's a great coach. I'm sure he could go coach any team in the league and probably give them a boost, and they could probably win 10 to 20% more games because he's their coach. But the reason why he's got so many championships as a coach is because he had Steph Curry.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had great players, right? Like, and he wasn't afraid to let Curry get all the glory. Like, and even Steph Curry, when he won his second and third championships, he should have been an MVP in one of those finals, but he didn't care. He got the ring. Let Kevin Durant get the MVPs. I don't care. I got the ring. Like, I don't care. We won. And he's okay with it because he recognizes that that's like KD took him on to help him win, right? Like, even the first one, Iguodala was not an offensive player. He got like Curry didn't get it right, like, but he doesn't care. He got the
Totally.
rings, and I think like as we look at business, as we approach business, it's we should believe that our people want to win, and let's give them the autonomy and let's let them go win. Because if they win, we're gonna win. Like Phil Jackson's got a lot of rings because he had a lot of great players.
Yeah, totally. Well, and we're talking about like it's a little bit different with our kids, obviously, but like we're talking about business. You're the one who decided to hire them. So is it possible we're wrong? Is there certain people that don't want to win? Absolutely. And it's also your fault that you hired them. So why are they even on your team? Right? And if they're on your team, then trust your people. If you don't trust your people, look at yourself and or get the right people that you can trust, right? It's really simple. But this idea of compliance, right, and control, man, it's exhausting. It's not scalable, and it creates an environment and a culture that is really super negative and disimpactful.
We used a word in our before we got on this podcast together when we were talking, and that word kind of stuck out, and so I wrote it down. Education. And I think as leaders, right, like if we are truly leading, it's important for us to set expectations, right? It goes to okay, let's define what winning is, right? But if we fail to set the expectation, then we fail to let our people know this is what this is what you need to achieve, what you need to do, right? And too often I've sat in corporate cultures where there's no expectation given. Or sometimes I think we might, as an employee or as a manager, we might receive an expectation from the boss that we just don't think is the right expectation. And we need to be in a safe space where we can bring that up. And then let's have back to deep conversations, right? Like, let's have a deep conversation and get into a dialogue regarding that. And it's not my way or your way. It's okay, how do we align and so that we can do this together, right? So
Totally. Well, and how unfair is it really? Like this is, in my role, right? It's not uncommon I have to deal with, sometimes terminations or, us having to let people go. And I do a lot of the exit interviews on purpose, me personally, because I want to have the conversation. I'm actually like really curious, right? Like, where did we go wrong? How did we get off unaligned in regards to your success here, right? What wasn't communicated? Like, I'm just super curious because I believe this, right? I believe most people want to win, right? And so if people aren't winning and they leave, I'm like, help me understand like where this is rooted in. And what's unfortunate about it is most leaders don't have conversations around like accountability and performance. And that's a whole other topic that we can get into, because I think people hear that term accountability and lose their minds. They assume negative. There's a right way to do it. But let's just assume we're all in agreement there's a good way to have an accountability conversation. Most of them can't have accountability conversations. Why? Because they were never clear enough in the expectations to even hold them accountable to something. They know they're not winning. I know they're struggling, but I had never like clearly stated what that was. And so how unfortunate is it, Jeremy, where I let someone go and I didn't give them the rules to the game? I'm like, here's the game, win at the game. And then I'm like, oh yeah, you lost your job. Why? Well, because, based upon the rules here, you didn't win. Well, you never gave me the rules. I had no idea what winning looked like. I didn't have the authority. I didn't have the knowledge to make the necessary pivots. And that is rooted in what? Well, you're not smart enough. I know all that stuff, right? It's like, it's this form of arrogance that people don't want to innately want to win. So we just control them. And if they're too hard to control, then they're the problem, right? And it's fascinating to me. But expectations at the root of most issues, in my opinion, when it comes to holding people accountable and letting them win. One thought really quick. I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think I trained a little bit when we knew each other a long time ago. I love it. And so I always use this analogy with belt colors, right? And so, a blue belt, white, blue, purple, brown, and black in the world of Jiu-Jitsu, right? Your best of the best is a black belt. Your blue and purple belts are pretty good, right? Setting clear expectations, that's purple belt. The black belt is letting them identify what winning is, and then you hold them accountable. There is so much more power in that, even if you know the answer, because the exercise in itself is meaningful. So as an example, I have a recruiter, hired a new recruiter. It's roughly about a year. She starts. Now, at this point in my career, I know what winning looks like from a recruiting perspective. I could have easily identified the dashboard of the metrics of what is winning and gave it to her, but I didn't. Instead, I was like, hey, I need you to let me know what winning is. And she was at first a little off, like, well, don't you want to tell me that? I'm like, I want you to think through it. How do you know you are doing an amazing job in recruiting? How do you know that? You're the CEO of you. How do you ensure you're doing your job really well? Right? And it took weeks, but she came up with the measures. Do you think she cares about those measures more than me?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Even if they're inferior to my metrics, she will live up to those metrics more effectively than anything that I give her, even if I'm quote unquote more correct.
Well, and now you both understand what winning is, because she's told you and you've been able to take note of that, right? And now you can hold her accountable to what she defines winning as. And that is powerful leadership, right? Because that's leading out of here's you the autonomy, here's you the freedom, so that you can set the standard, right? And this is the standard that now I'm going to hold you accountable to. And maybe for her, that standard changes over time in the fact that it improves, right? Like it's like, okay, like
or we
actually
get new insights.
This was kind of easy, right? Like I'm hitting this really easily, right? Like I need to stretch myself a little bit more. As leaders, we'll be surprised at how often people will come to us and be like, you know what? If we've given them that autonomy, that freedom, right? They're going to come to us and say, you know what? This is a little too easy. I'm kind of bored, right? Like I actually feel like I need to be doing this. But if they're always afraid of us, if we're always dictating and we're always giving them I'm going to give you the rope, I'm going to allow you to do this, then they're never going to come to us to change the goalpost. They never will, because they're always going to be doing the bare minimum, because they'll have no desire to do more, because they don't feel like we trust them. And so they're not going to lean in. They're not going to become exceptional at their role. They're going to become exceptional at their side hustle. They're going to become exceptional at
where their heart is. Yeah.
At checking out. They're going to become exceptional at liking cat photos on Facebook. But if we give them the ability to say, okay, this to me is what winning is. And that's where I went with the Kobe Bryant, right? Like Kobe defined what winning it was for him. He didn't need a coach to tell him, right? Like his coach let him define it, right? And it like and the great players do, but even the not great players oftentimes do. That's why they play at such a at a professional level, right? Like even if you're the 12th man off the bench for the worst team in the NBA, you're still better than probably 98% of the players playing in Europe right now. Like
Totally.
there's a
Well, and you
reason why
know
you're
that,
getting paid to be in the NBA.
yeah, and you know that guy has winning. Guess what the winning is? I'm going to hold Kobe to 20 points during practice. That's
Yeah.
my win.
Yeah.
That's my lane by which I'm operating. Based upon my current capabilities, my winning is to challenge him, right? But trust me, they're still winning. They're not checked out. You know what I mean? They're
Yep.
trying to win.
Exactly. Yeah.
It just looks differently, and those metrics change over time.
Yeah. And you like and again going back to her example, right? Like the recruiter is an example, right? Like you take a guy right out of college, right? Like he may come in and be that 12th guy for the first couple of years, but then as he improves, it's like, okay, you know what? Like you look at a guy like a Bruce Bowen. I don't know, people probably don't know who that is, but he played for the Spurs, but he became like the first like real 3 and D guy, meaning he could knock down three-pointers and he was a defensive stopper. He was one of the hardest players that Kobe had to play against because he was a defensive stopper, and he was part of the reason why the Spurs won so many championships in the early 2000s. And but like he's not Tim Duncan, he's not Tony Parker, right? But like he was a guy that could come in, he started a lot of games, but he was gonna shut you down as well. But when he started in the league, it was like, no, he was just trying to stay on the roster. But that goalpost moved for him, right? Like he improved and enhanced his skill set. He became, I think, second defensive team, whatever. Like he became a solid player that was highly revered across the league. And so our people, as we give them freedom to work through that, they're going to do exceptional things. And hopefully they do them for our company and under our
Not for our
leadership.
competition.
Right. So
Totally.
or while
You said,
developing our competition while working for.
yeah, yeah. Well, and you said something earlier that I wanted to come back to just really quick because, I think one fault that some companies make is they have attempted to fill the moral absence in society with who you work for. So what they've done is they're like, oh, well, come work for Apple because we care about all these social issues, and working for us will give you purpose and meaning. And then they'll almost shy away from talking about the transactional relationship of working there. And I want to call that out too. You got to be black and white with people, right? And because people are smart, believe in the individual. And so is it a transactional agreement when I work for someone? Absolutely it is, right? But let's do business in a way where I win and you win, and we're better off together. That has to be at the forefront of what we do. And you can't just pretend, right, that it's not transactional and then double down on the moral side of it. Like, well, we're just a happy family and the employees come first in the end, always. Well, really? Like, what if we're not making money? Are they still coming first then, right? Like, so part of that expectation is getting really clear of what is winning, but also like, how do we interact with each other and what's the transactional agreement, right? And how do we have a win-win circumstance? But if we're naive and we try to mince words and omit the truth, those are all yucky forms of dishonesty, and it doesn't drive high trust. And this is why a lot of organizations try for paid transparency. Why? Because they're trying to be really clear. This is what you should make in your role. And this is how you make more in the next role. And we're not going to hide around that, right? Like this is a transactional thing. And now get really clear on what you can do, and we'll support you in doing it. It's a good thing. And we need to not also like pretend that it's not a transactional relationship.
So maybe it's vernacular here. I struggle with using the term transactional relationship, right? But I'll explain why, right? Like I totally get your point and I agree, right? Like I think it's because at the end of the day, right? a business is going to do what's best for the business, and the employee is going to do what's best for the employee, and that's what that's what a free capitalistic society allows us to do, right? But I think it should be more than just a transactional relationship, because at the end of the day, we are hiring people. These are people that are working with us, right? And they have families. And that doesn't mean that we need to hold on to them too long, right? But there's a lot of examples of like, okay, if this isn't the right role or this isn't the right fit, let's help you find the right fit. And if it's not here at this company, let's use our network. Let's use whoever here at the company's network that we can line you up with the right fit. Because at the end of the day, these are people. And that's one of the biggest issues that I have with like Welchian economics, as I call it, right? Like, is that it is 100%
100%
transactional.
transactional. Yeah.
And I think it's important that we are transparent that yes, this is a transactional relationship in the sense that yeah, we're a company. If we do have to downsize, like that, those things can happen, right? But I think that at the end of the day, we're humans, we are communal, and we need to support each other as communal individuals and try to provide some sort of runway. If somebody's being malicious or whatever, right? Like it's like, okay, like you just gotta go, right? Like we can't, like that's not okay. But the more, and going back to like leading in love and value and all of those things, right? Like that takes it beyond just a traditional transactional relationship, right? Like, and I think as we look at like, because you're right, right? Like if I'm just going like if this brand is touting, hey, we're holistic in this way and whatever, right? Like, yeah, well, at the end of the day, you're paying me a paycheck, right? Because I'm giving you a service and you're valuing me based on that, right? Like, however, if we do look at like brand affinity, for example, right? Like there are certain brands that we are attached to as individuals because of cachet, feature set, benefit, whatever, right? Like, and so to
Totally.
us, it might become more of more than just a transactional relationship, right? Like I go into an Apple store because it's an experience. I walk up, I go to the Genius Bar, they help me out setting up my new computer, right? Like, and I want that MacBook because there's something that comes with that that bit now Apple, right? Like, but I look at that, right? Like the customer business relationship, but also I think the employee business relationship is similar in the sense that like, okay, I'm coming to work for this company because I believe in certain missions, certain values. They align with who I am at the core. And so I'm going to give more than I would just in a quote unquote, right? Like if I go work for McDonald's, I'll go in, I'll flip my burgers, I'll take my 15 bucks an hour and I walk, right? Like I won't think about it again. But if I'm truly committed to my job, I might walk in and I might be out on my morning run thinking about, okay, what are the ways that I can improve metrics within this world, right? Like, and that to me is more than just a simple transactional relationship.
Yeah,
And I feel
totally.
like if we give our employees the autonomy, the freedom to do those things and to excel and to understand the expectations and all of those things we talked about, then we as leaders, as bosses, as managers, as business owners need to also look at that and say, okay, you know what? If they have a tough moment, or maybe they're struggling at home, right? Like maybe they're going through a divorce, maybe they're mentally fatigued, maybe they just lost a child and I'm not aware of those things, right?
Totally.
And if I don't get to know them and take it beyond a transactional relationship, then how can I really truly take care of them as people? Because the last thing that you want to do, and I've seen this way too many times, I've heard way too many stories of this, is that when your mother passes away, you get fired from your job a week later. Like I have a really close friend that's exactly what happened. Was he was leaving to his mom's funeral and they called him into the office and they knew he was headed to his mom's funeral and they let him go. And I can tell you he was a great employee. He gave a lot to the company because he believed in it and what they were doing. But to them it was just a transactional relationship and that's not okay.
Yeah, totally. Well, and not only just not okay morally, but it's actually bad business
It is
because
bad
there's a
business.
big difference. There's a big difference of an employee that's in the space of compliance, that's doing enough, just enough though, right? Not to get fired and meets whatever metrics required to keep my job versus the employee that's fully committed and engaged. Those are two drastic employees, and their effect on the business is so drastically different. So it's even good business. Now, we shouldn't do it from the perspective of trying to get the most out of them, right? But when you have an employee that's fully committed and engaged in the work that they're doing, they're a better employee. They innovate. They do amazing things. It's good business, right? And past the transactional side, that's what I always call is like intrinsic needs and motivators. There are things, right? Eventually in our careers, once we make so much, it's the other things we care about more. It's belonging to a team. It's working somewhere where I feel seen and my needs and I'm understood, right? That I have autonomy in the work that I'm doing. There's higher motivators that drive employees to be motivated and inspired than just a paycheck.
Yep,
and if
absolutely.
it's just the money, if it's just transactional, then transactional is all that you'll get, right? And it's just a really bad place, right? When we have employees operating from that perspective.
So for those that are listening that want to experience more freedom, more autonomy from their bosses, from their managers,
get a new job.
What are
I'm just joking.
What are some things that they can do to show that they're responsible and accountable and those things, so that hopefully they can at least test to see if their boss will give them that before they go get a new job?
Yeah, I'll share. I'll give the answer in a story. I had a leader, middle management, come to me. This is probably about a year and a half ago, and compensation increases were through middle management have to submit them, and they'd have to get approved by the CEO and ultimately approved by the CEO. Okay. And this particular leader is like upset about it, right? It's like, it's so annoying. It's my team, right? Like it's my budget, right? Let me operate within this space. AK, back to the principle I said earlier, accountability, responsibility, and authority need to be equally aligned. He felt disempowered. Why? Because I'm held responsible to budget, but I have no control over what I do in it. Are you joking? Right? Then dial back the responsibility. So anyhow, he feels disempowered. He comes to me and says, this is frustrating, blah, blah, blah. I don't like this. And my response to him is, okay, understand. Are you winning today? Are you winning? Are you killing it? Are your margins awesome? Is your revenue up? Is your team achieving greatness? No. Then you're in zero position to be asking for more autonomy from your boss. It's super easy in life for us to point the finger and say, if I would only have a boss that would believe in me, then I'll show up more powerfully, and then I'll have the amazing job I want. You know what that's called? It's called a victim mindset. So any area of your life where you're waiting and hoping, you're allocating blame, you have excuses for what you're doing or not doing, tells me that you're not operating in a space of ownership and identifying the areas that are within your realm of control. So you don't like the things outside your realm of control? Double down on the things within your control. Okay, what's in my control? How do I win where I'm at? How do I ensure success where I'm at? Right? Start winning. And you know what happens when you start winning and you go up to your boss and you say, hey, boss, I want more responsibility. You think most bosses don't also want you to win because it helps them win? You think they're going to go, no, stay in your lane? No. Most of them will go, absolutely, Jeremy, you get more. Because you earn trust through your performance. This is what's so interesting about the work that I do. The message I give one leader is one thing. The message I give the other leader is drastically different, but they both support the same objective. Leaders need to be great leaders. They need to extend trust. Individual contributors that want more trust, the answer to them is not wait for your leader to extend trust. You earn it by winning.
No, absolutely. And I think if you don't know what winning is, then have that conversation with your manager, right? Like to find.
This is what I've identified as the top 5 things, the success criteria of me winning in my role. Do you agree? Do you have anything you'd like to add to it? What's your feeling of that employee if they had that conversation with you?
So good. Absolutely.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, this guy's a rock star. He hasn't even won yet. And I highly respect him. Why? Because they're taking initiative and they're owning their world. They're not being passive, waiting to be told what to do.
They're fully intentional on what they're wanting, right? Like they're looking to see that. Absolutely.
Totally. And people that are like, this is not applicable to my job. Take that same principle and apply it to your wife. Honey, what's winning as a husband? This is what I think. Do you agree? Like how often, how many areas of our life, whether it's in our communities, at work, in our families, where we aren't intentional like this? How many dads don't ask their kids, hey, what does a good dad look like to you? What does love look like to you? What do I do that lets you know that I love you? Do you even know? Do we even know? Most dads don't, I don't think. So we're just floating along, assuming that us walking around is enough.
There's your journal assignment for tonight, everybody. Go and journal on what you can ask your kid, right? Like, what are the things that I think is winning in my marriage, as a parent, and in my job, right? Yeah.
Yeah, word counsel.
And then go.
Yeah, and listen and don't rebuttal. Oh, no, I do that. But don't do any of that. Just shut up. Take it in, check the ego, and listen. That's it. Don't reply. Don't rebuttal.
No, that's great. Okay, this has been great. Before we wrap, I want to just fire off some rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
So feel free.
I'll try not to extend them too long. Okay.
Yeah, take your time if you want to. If you want to go through them quick, that's fine. I'll try to keep my commentary to a minimum, though. How do you respond to failure?
Identify my role in it and take responsibility so I can learn from it.
Awesome. What is one of your greatest accomplishments?
I don't know if I count it as an accomplishment, but one of my greatest things I've ever done was being a dad. I didn't, by default, I didn't have to work hard for it, but it's my greatest. I think selling my business has like a nice ring to it. It's a good story, right? Like I had to exit, right? And I did well, but probably just fatherhood.
That's fine by me. I think that's a safe answer. What frightens you?
Regret. Going through life with the mentality of looking back and wishing and hoping I would have done something different.
I can understand that. What inspires you?
Oh, man, I think what inspires me is I get inspired when I start thinking about and when I get present to our impact in the world. I think we all play small, typically. I don't think we realize the impact that we make in other people's lives, and we shy away and we don't get on the court and remain in the bleachers as a spectator. And we play small because of it. But when I think about what's possible, when I really think about what we can create for other people, what's available for us to serve other people, that gets me fired up.
What's something that you would tell your 18-year-old self?
I mean, I don't like these questions. Full stop. I don't like them mostly because that implies that I wouldn't be content with how I am right now and that I should have known something when I was 18 and as a result be something I'm not today. So I know I'm in the spirit of the question. I'm messing up the spirit of the question here.
Hey,
but I
think it's a great answer, right? Like, because I think that's actually thoughtful about the answer, right? Because we are who we are today because of the events that have happened over the last 27 years, 25 years. And yeah, if we'd have told our 18, like, okay, go invest in Apple. Like,
who knows? Would you be the person you are?
Totally different spot today, right? Like,
yeah, and maybe you wouldn't want it. Maybe you wouldn't want it. Well, and I feel like, I don't know, man. Like, how's this? Maybe my bar was low. Absolutely was low. Let me restate that. My bar of what I thought I was going to get out of life when I was 18 years is way below where I am now. And so I've already about where I've come in life. Not that I'm complacent with that, right? And not driving forward, but like in the grand scheme of things, I made tons of horrible mistakes in my youth. Luckily, I was aware enough to learn from them and become a better version. And so I can't help but be grateful for the mistakes I did make.
Love it. No, that's great. So I like to ask the question because I like to see the different answers we get, and I've definitely had some rebuttals that like I don't want to say anything to my 18-year-old self like you just did. So
okay, well, good.
It's okay. That's okay. What's your favorite place you've traveled in the past and why?
Favorite place? Oh man, I love traveling. Probably like right now, like the thing that's on my mind. Like last summer? I'm already spacing this. Last summer or the summer before, the family went out to Strasbourg, France for a month or so and just stayed put and lived out there for a short stint. Whenever we get to do that, I love it because we just engulf in the culture.
Yeah.
Kids were learning French. My wife knows French. And so it was just, I loved the transplant aspect of travel and getting into other cultures. So whenever we can do an extended stay somewhere, that's usually ends up becoming my favorite vacation.
So did you travel around much, or did you pretty much just stay in Strasbourg?
We stayed, we had an Airbnb in Strasbourg, the city. And then almost every weekend we'd go out to chateaus and Kaiserberg and these other areas, went down to Switzerland and Nice, France, or not Nice, Annecy, over by Geneva.
Yeah. Annecy,
and so
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Love
so
that
we did our little travels from there, but it was us being there the whole time and not like a short stint that made it great.
Oh, that's great. Walk into the bakery every morning, get your baguettes.
Dude, great bread. Yeah, it was great. What was great about it, Jeremy, that Asia and I later, I'm like, what was it that made that really great? What it was is there's no dance, there's no basketball, there's no school, there's no nothing. It was us and our kids. So it was in the morning, we'd go out and do something. I'd work, we'd have dinner together, hang out every night. It was just us.
You were living in margin.
And it was good for us.
Yeah,
yes.
You were living 100% in margin. I love it. And I think especially with extended stay travel, it's just a powerful experience in that way, right? But even we've done several road trips with our kids. For anybody listening to the podcast, they know we've been to all 50 states as a family. And even though we were going, there was still such margin for us. Like, it was in the van, talking with our kids, experiencing things together, right? Like, it wasn't trying to rush them from one activity to the next. And now we're to that point, right? Like, where I've got a kid living in the Philippines for 2 years. I got a varsity cheerleader that is almost never home, right? And my 21-year-old comes home every once in a while. Like, she gets home last night at 10:30. And so then we're up for 30, 40 minutes taking in the margin, right? Like, chatting with her, talking with her, having that moment, because those are so far and few between now. It's so different.
Yeah.
So I love it. Spending a month in France, staying put. What a fantastic little experience for your family, for sure. What book are you reading right now?
Oh man, what books aren't I reading? Actually, I just started. I have to look it up really quick because I couldn't remember the exact name. I just literally started 2 days ago. So, About Face by Hackworth, Colonel Hackworth.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm reading About Face. And then just finished the book, The Gap in the Gain, which is actually a really good book. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's on my library hold list right now. So I'm just waiting for that one to come through.
It really resonated with me because the premise of that book is my default is to operate in the gap. Which, unspoken expectations, ideal state, never focus on progress. And so I have a tendency to double down in that space and be miserable to those around me. So it was a good book.
Good. Yeah, I'm excited to read that one. I had somebody else recommend that one to me. So that one on the list. What book have you read in the past 12 to 18 months that you would highly recommend to others?
Oh man, probably 8 to 12. Oh man, I read this book often. And in fact, I bought it for my team during Christmas. It was part of their Christmas gifts, but The Four Agreements is such a great book. It's a short read. Don Miguel Ruiz is the author, and it's just a great book. I think it's foundational. So that book is probably one of on my top of the list. Multiple reads over and over. As a Man Thinketh is on that list over and over. You happen to catch me reading that book again in the past 6 months, so that's why it makes the list. But
awesome, cool.
Yeah.
Have you ever read The Way of the Superior Man? Okay, because I would fit with what you do with masculinity and just leadership in that role. I would figure that would be one that you have an affinity for. It's a popular
book in what we call the manosphere.
I read that one late last year, and I enjoyed it. There's some really good things to pull from it.
You know what you'll like? You might like Masculinity and Relationships.
Okay.
It's a great book.
I'll have to check that one out.
It's a really good book too.
Okay. Awesome. Well, where can people keep up with you or follow you, Kip?
Probably Instagram is probably the easiest way. At Kipp Sorensen with two P's, KIPPSORENSEN. Danish, not Swedish, Danish, EN.
Okay.
Represent.
The sen, not the sun. So, okay. We'll put that in the show notes too as well. So,
Okay, awesome, man.
Kip, it was a pleasure. I appreciate you taking some time to chat with us. Thanks for joining us, everybody, here on A Bit of Curiosity. Again, just, yeah, rate us, review us, share this with people. We appreciate your listening. Thanks, Kip.
Yeah, absolutely.